Grunge was a huge subgenre of alternative rock that emerged in America in the mid 1980s that embodied counterculture. The whole mood of grunge was counterculture and dark to some extent. The genre brought fans of introspection and heavy rock to one place. The counterculture essence is one of the clearest attributes of grunge music. Counterculture is so engraved in grunge that even the word itself literally means grime or dirt. That is contrary to our natural feeling that being dirty or grimy is a bad thing, because like grunge, the name of the genre, and not to say that the music is bad, but the word is bad, so it's kind of contrary to how we view it naturally. The youth brought about this movement and were going directly against the grain of pop music. The fans of grunge were the youth who had diverted from pop stars of the time, like Billy Joel, Madonna, and Michael Jackson. For them, grunge was their sound and their personality. Keith Negus explained in his book Popular Music Theory how two experts discovered the creative minority that came about through a generational gap. This creative minority challenged the Puritan restraints of their culture and created their own subculture in their time. This phenomenon is parallel to the counterculture movement of grunge. Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins said grunge was about somebody taking a counterculture movement and figuring out how to sell it. Grunge grew such a big following that it started developing characteristics for its audience. Drugs were frequently in the grunge scene as a lot of the artists were addicted. Many fans were also drug users. A possibility of why drugs were so big with grunge could be that both are counterculture and go against the norm of the time. One of my sources that I put in talks about exactly like why they go hand in hand and why they're so perfect and how they're both kind of against the grain and how they amplify each other, how like the drugs and the music go together and make like that experience of counterculture. Grunge forces like darker lyrics and drug use are evident with Kurt Cobain. His music and the band Nirvana is amazing, and it's like the real grunge feeling, and Nirvana is a true grunge band. Sadly, he took his own life due to his crippling drug addiction. Some bands that were in the grunge genre are Alice in Chains, Everclear, Pearl Jam, The Smashing Pumpkins, and Soundgarden. It was a binding of mainstream heavy metal and post-punk alternative rock. Encyclopedia Britannica explains that grunge was inspired by the sound of Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, and AC/DC. So you can see that a lot of these influences and instruments are very similar to these type of bands. You have the standard vocalist, guitar, bassist, and drummer, and a lot of this took alternative rock and that feeling to a whole nother level, and it included kind of a heavy metal force into alternative. The source goes on to explain that grunge uses forces of guitar distortion, angsty vocals, and anguish lyrics. So the lyrics are kind of dreadful, and the vocals are all over the place and kind of dark, and the guitar is distorted, and you can kind of hear that heavy metal influence. The influence of heavy metal and other grunge forces can easily be heard in the Smashing Pumpkins song Bullet with Butterfly Wings. The song starts with the lyrics, "The world is a vampire sent to drain." So these lyrics are very dark and dreadful, and his vocals are kind of going up and down on the scale, and you can hear the guitar in the back playing a darker beat. And when these are darker lyrics and the grunge vibe is evident, and the heavy metal kicks up in the chorus when the vocalist goes from a calmer dynamic to a more explosive one, and the guitar distorts, and you can the music feels like a heavy metal throughout the song, because you can hear the guitar and the drums and that influence of AC/DC and Led Zeppelin kick in. So in summary, grunge was a monumental counterculture movement of the youth that defined and shaped a great generation. Defined and shaped a generation and their counterculture. Many of the bands that were popular then are still listened to today. This movement will forever be remembered as a counterculture subgenre of alternative rock that carved out a huge cult fan base.